Imagine a man standing on the deck of a ship, surrounded by a vast grey ocean, holding a small bag tightly against his chest. Inside that bag was a small golden trophy weighing less than 4 kilograms. No one had asked him to bring it, and no one could be certain anyone would be waiting for him when he arrived. Yet the man smiled, because he believed in an idea that no one could prove. Today, we follow the story of the sport that has become a universal language spoken by billions of people. This is the story of the FIFA World Cup. The man aboard that ship was Jules Rimet, the president of FIFA. In 1930, he sailed to Uruguay to witness the first FIFA World Cup in history. Only 13 nations agreed to take part, and just 4 of them came from Europe. To make the tournament possible, Rimet wrote letters, made countless phone calls, and personally persuaded football associations to join. Most European countries still refused. The Great Depression had just begun, money was scarce, and the long sea voyage discouraged many nations. But Jules Rimet believed football could become a language the whole world would understand. He had no proof, only faith. To understand where that dream began, we must travel back in time. On November 30th, 1872, in Glasgow, Scotland, the first official international football match was played. England faced Scotland in front of around 4,000 spectators. The match ended in a scoreless draw. By today's standards, it was an ordinary game. But for the first time in history, 2 nations chose to settle their rivalry on a football field instead of a battlefield. That simple idea would go on to change the world. From England, football spread across Europe, then South America, Africa, and Asia. Wherever it arrived, people quickly fell in love with the game. By the 1920s, football had become one of the Olympic Games' most celebrated sports. Then a small team from Uruguay captured the world's attention. At the 1924 Olympic Games in Paris, Uruguay arrived as virtual unknowns. Few believed they could compete with Europe's strongest teams, but their fast, creative, and joyful style of football left the entire stadium in awe. Uruguay won the gold medal and repeated the achievement 4 years later. Jules Rimet realized football deserved a world championship of its own. In 1928, he presented the idea at the FIFA Congress. The proposal was approved, and the FIFA World Cup was born. 2 years later, ships carried national teams across the Atlantic to Montevideo. On July 13, 1930, Lucien Laurent scored the first goal in FIFA World Cup history. Uruguay went on to defeat Argentina and became the first world champions. But the greatest lesson from that tournament was never the trophy itself. It was the belief that in football, the smallest team could still overcome the strongest. 20 years later, the world witnessed that truth once again. The 1950 World Cup was held in Brazil, where almost everyone believed the host nation would become champions. More than 200,000 spectators packed the Maracanã Stadium for the decisive match. Brazil needed only a draw to lift the trophy. Instead, Uruguay scored twice and produced one of the greatest upsets football has ever seen. An unforgettable silence fell over the giant stadium, and the moment became known as the Maracanazo. The World Cup continued to produce stories no one could predict. In 1958, a 17-year-old boy traveled to Sweden with Brazil's national team. As a child, he had practiced football with a grapefruit stuffed inside a sock because his family was too poor to afford a proper ball. His name was Edson Arantes do Nascimento, though the world would remember him as Pelé. Pelé scored twice in the final and led Brazil to its first World Cup title. When the final whistle blew, the 17-year-old collapsed to the ground in tears. It was the moment a legend was born. But Brazil's golden era was never only about Pelé. At the 1962 World Cup, Pelé suffered an early injury and could no longer play. Many believed Brazil's title defense was over. Instead, another remarkable man stepped forward. His name was Garrincha, a boy born with severely deformed legs who had been told he would never run properly. Against every expectation, Garrincha became one of the greatest dribblers the sport has ever known. He almost single-handedly carried Brazil to a second consecutive World Cup title. In 1970, Brazil introduced the world to a style of football unlike anything seen before. Pelé and his teammates played with breathtaking unity and effortless brilliance. Their victory over Italy in the final completed the legacy of one of the greatest teams in football history. Brazil became the first nation to win 3 World Cup titles. The Jules Rimet trophy was awarded to them permanently. Yet not every chapter in World Cup history was glorious. The Second World War forced the cancellation of the 1942 and 1946 tournaments. Stadiums became military bases, and many footballers became soldiers instead of athletes. Even the Jules Rimet trophy came dangerously close to disappearing forever. A FIFA official named Ottorino Barassi secretly took the trophy home. He hid it inside a shoebox beneath his bed throughout the war. Because of his quiet courage, football's greatest symbol survived. In 1966, the trophy was stolen again just before the tournament began in England. The entire country searched for it without success. 4 days later, a dog named Pickles discovered the trophy wrapped in newspaper beneath a bush. Pickles instantly became a national hero. Despite every challenge, the World Cup continued to grow stronger. Because the true power of the tournament has never belonged to the trophy, but to the hearts of those who love the game. As the World Cup grew, it gradually opened its doors to more nations. For decades, teams from Africa and Asia had little opportunity to compete on football's biggest stage. After years of determination and change, more places were awarded to countries beyond Europe and South America. The World Cup became a celebration for the entire planet. In 1994, the tournament came to the United States and helped transform the country's relationship with football. In 2002, Japan and South Korea became the first Asian nations to co-host the World Cup. In 2010, the tournament was held in Africa for the very first time, in South Africa. The sound of the vuvuzela echoed through stadiums around the world, reminding everyone that football belongs to all people. In 2022, Morocco wrote one of the greatest fairy tales in World Cup history. They defeated some of the world's strongest teams to become the first African nation to reach the semi-finals. When Achraf Hakimi converted the decisive penalty against Spain, he ran into the stands and embraced his mother. The photograph quickly became a symbol of love, sacrifice, and pride around the world. The World Cup has never been just 90 minutes of football. It is where the dreams, hopes, and memories of billions of people come together. In 2026, the World Cup will be hosted jointly for the first time by the United States, Mexico, and Canada. The tournament will expand to 48 teams, making it the largest in history. Nations that have never qualified before will have the chance to step onto football's greatest stage. Billions of people from different cultures and languages will gather to watch the same ball roll across the same field. When the opening whistle blows, those differences seem to disappear. What Jules Rimet carried aboard that ship in 1930 was never just a golden trophy. He was carrying the belief that football could bring the world together. Through wars, crises, and countless challenges, that belief has never disappeared. Every World Cup reminds us that the impossible is always possible. That is why this tournament continues to inspire billions of people to hope, to dream, and to believe. And perhaps that is the greatest trophy the World Cup has ever given to the world.